This week, McClellan finally moves. First thing this week is the end of the siege of Yorktown. From the 2nd to the 3rd, full General Johnston withdraws his men from the trenches of Yorktown, completely unnoticed. When they leave, they fire their cannons randomly to both scare the Army of the Potomac and to ensure no ammunition is left over. They set booby traps and abandon their fortifications. On the early morning of the 4th, 2 runaway slaves reach Union camp, inform a nearby officer that Yorktown has been abandoned. The message soon gets sent up the line of command. McClellan has won the siege. He lost less men than the Confederates, but it is no great victory. He will move up the peninsula and take Richmond, but the Confederate army still poses a massive threat. On the 2nd, New Orleans is reclaimed by Secretary of State William Seward. As news reaches Europe, Confederate diplomats are distraught. New Orleans was their biggest city. Without it, they are not ready for major trading. Look like they're losing, because they are, and Europe sees nothing to gain from recognition of a losing state. The same day, the Senate does what it does best: disagree. From Senator Benjamin Wade of Ohio, a radical Republican: "It was not my intention to speak on this. I am not unmindful that I have sworn to observe the Constitution. I do not believe there is anything in this bill that contravenes the Constitution. Senator Browning holds the power to free the slaves is altogether with the President. At the moment war is declared, the President is a despot, armed with the irresponsible power to do just what he thinks is necessary of the occasion. A more dangerous construction of the Constitution cannot be imagined. It is not in harmony with the spirit of the Constitution. I do suppose the rights of war do invest the government with all the power that is necessary to maintain itself intact. No doubt that is true. But the question remains, who shall exercise the power?" Then speaks Senator Salisbury of Delaware, a Democrat. "Pass this bill. Undertake to emancipate the slaves, and what will be the consequence? You have discarded every utterance of a representative from a border state heretofore, and you will thereby lose any hope of a reunion of the states. It is gone. It is past. Contrary to the interests of the border states, you passed your bill for the abolition of slavery in the district. You passed your resolution in compliance with the presidential recommendation for emancipation in the district, for emancipation in the border states. In nothing that you have done, sir, have you listened to our advice. You have given no heed to our consul. You have treated us with contempt, and you have virtually said to us that our consuls are not welcome, or advice is not needed. And now you propose to pass this bill? I know that in these days, when there is a triumphant majority, when you think you have everything your own way, it is very easy to imagine that you're going to carry out your policy everywhere. But you are mistaken. Mr. President, I venture to make a prediction. I'm neither a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but I say pass your emancipation bills, thinking you are freeing the slaves. And if you take them after you free them to your northern states among yourselves, you will do something more than I anticipate. For you are passing resolutions and laws to keep them from coming among you. My prophecy is that in 1870, whether you conquer the seceded states or not, if local state governments are preserved in this country, there will be more slaves in the United States than there were in 1860. Lincoln is looking better than he has before with the recent victories in the West. He's been able to secure further support from more Democrats and moderate Republicans. Though a specter does loom over him, as it does with Congress: the midterm elections. On the 3rd, we move to Corinth, Mississippi. By the 3rd, Major General John Pope has captured Farmington, just outside of Corinth. But Major General Henry Halleck, Pope's superior, is not happy with Pope's position and tells him to withdraw. The siege of Corinth is coming out to a pretty peaceful start. The combined 3 Union armies, the Army of the Tennessee, Army of the Ohio, and Army of the Mississippi, are having a hard time setting up camp. The rain and mud has slowed them from getting into position, and Halleck can't have the siege on bad foundation. On the 5th, or as they say in Mexico, Cinco de Mayo, the outnumbered Mexican army under the command of General Zaragoza defeats a French army. For the Civil War, this is a blow to the Confederates. European nations are Richmond's best hope for a victory, and the applied pressure of the UK and Canada and France and Mexico could be a valuable bargaining chip. The same day, the Battle of Williamsburg. The Confederates are moving from Yorktown to a more dependable position in the peninsula, but Union brigades are catching up with them. Full General Joseph E. Johnston detaches men to slow the Union down at Fort Magruder. Brigadier General Joseph Hooker moves up his division to assault the fort. His men do well, but are soon repulsed with heavy gunfire. Major General Longstreet of the Confederacy takes the initiative and charges down at Hooker. Hooker's men hold, despite being outnumbered. He needs reinforcements. Where is Brigadier General Smith's division? Well, Brigadier General Sumner is the unit commander of all of the forces present at Fort Magruder, and he has grown worried and told Smith to not get involved. Hooker is holding, but being pushed slowly back. He needs the help. Bam! A brigade of Confederate infantry slams into Hooker's division. His men start to break. Then help does arrive. Brigadier General Kearny's division. Union charges and push the Confederates back. The battle is on a knife's edge. The two lines open fire. Smoke chokes the field. Brigadier General Hancock takes his brigade, disobeys Sumner, and moves in to attack Longstreet. On the fields of the College of William and Mary, Hancock sets up his cannons and begins a terrifying bombardment. The Confederates are now on the back foot. Confederate Brigadier General Jubal Early takes 2 regiments to flank the Union cannons. Instead of attacking the flank, though, he charges right down the center. Cannon shot after cannon shot rips into the charging Confederates. Not only are the Confederates outgunned, but they are outnumbered, as 3,500 Union infantry open a volley into the only 1,200 charging Confederates. They then try to move back, but Hancock charges into them. He takes 100 casualties and inflicts 810. But Hooker is not doing as well. His men are back at the breaking point when Brigadier General Peck arrives with his brigade and reinforces Hooker. The Confederates withdraw, not willing to fight the fresh and now gigantic Union force. They are forced to leave their positions, but are successful in delaying the Union. The Union suffered 2,283 casualties to the Confederates' 1,682. McClellan calls it a brilliant victory, but the Confederate forces remain intact and have bought time for itself. On the 7th, a debate in the Senate. So unexpected. Senator Henry Wilson of Massachusetts and Senator Joshua Hale of New Hampshire are both Republicans. First from Wilson, I return to Mr. Collamer's proposed amendment, where he puts the discretion of freeing the slaves on the President. I offer an amendment to his amendment, which makes it imperative upon the President to issue his proclamation, immediately after the passage of 30 days. The slaves of all rebels are made free. Then from Hale, there is difficulty in my mind regarding this. I hope we have not gone so far that a man may be treated here as I used to be treated in my home state when I quoted the Constitution and the Supreme Court. Mr. Wilson would authorize the President to go into one of these states and point out a crime, and as punishment for that crime, by proclamation, to liberate his slaves. It strikes me, if we have a Constitution at all, that such a proceeding is palpably unconstitutional. It is not worthwhile for us to let our feelings run away with our judgments entirely. I think the senator will find that it is nothing more nor less than taking that crime, which is being in rebellion, and imposing as punishment, not of confiscation, but of the liberation of his slaves by the simple proclamation of the President. Finally from Wilson, now, sir, it seems clear to me we have the power to free the slaves of rebels, and having the power to do it, I believe it is our duty to do it. Sir, I believe that if the Congress fails now to do its duty, we shall see some of the leaders of the rebellion come back here and shake their bloody hands in our faces defiantly. If we leave this gigantic power untouched, we will have here again in the capital that race of bold, arrogant, domineering, disloyal men gain sway in the councils of the country. The Senate is actually at a standstill right now. It might be the President and not Congress who will have to decide the future of slavery. Also on the 7th, a battle at Eltham's Landing on the Virginia Peninsula. The withdrawal from Williamsburg is going well, but there is still risk. Full General Johnston has tasked Major General G.W. Smith with protecting the entrance to Bramsville. He has 11,000 men to do so. He is to ensure the roads are only open for Confederates. Opposing him is 11,300 men under Brigadier General Franklin. This makes up the Union force, which is further broken down into 3 brigades, with Brigadier General Newton up front. Newton has posted scouts up front where the forest and road meet. When these scouts hear something, the rustling of leaves, then they see rebels charging them at bayonet point. 2 brigades are moving against them. They open fire but are soon overpowered. They withdraw to nearby gunboats. The Confederates follow and try to use their own artillery to deal with the naval cannon fire, but are outranged and have to withdraw. The Union lost 194 men to the Confederates' 46. No territory exchange, and the Confederate withdrawal was done unmolested. The next day, another battle in Virginia, not on the peninsula, but in the valley, near the town of McDowell. The Confederates number 6,000 men, and the Union 6,500. Major General Stonewall Jackson has set up his forces on a hill. The Union has two commanders, Brigadier Generals Milroy and Schneck. The two are of one mind, though. Take the hill. To accomplish this goal, they sent forth 5 regiments, 4 from Ohio and 1 from West Virginia. The units charge up the hill. Though the situation is actually better for the Union than it sounds. The sun casts shadows that hide them and silhouette their opponents, along with the terrible state of the Confederates' weaponry and supplies. But the Confederates do have numbers, so they clash in close range, and despite Confederate reinforcements pouring in, it's like the Union might take the field of battle. They push their way through, cause Confederate regiments to rout, and then night falls. They must return to camp. The Union lost 256 men to the Confederates' 532. Despite causing harsh casualties to Jackson, the Union starts a retreat in the night. Also on the 8th, in the House of Representatives, the question of slavery is taken up. Representative Cox of Ohio's 12th immediately moves to table it. The vote fails. Then Representative McKnight of Pennsylvania's 22nd moves to adjourn, which works. There is actually a growing divide in Congress. Ohio and Pennsylvania are both huge political states, not just because they are the third and second biggest population centers, but because they are also swing states, and the fight over them has begun. Final thing on the 8th, Confederate chatter between the generals. Headquarters, Richmond, May 8th, 1862. General Joseph E. Johnston, commanding. I understand that the enemy has built a bridge of boats across the Rappahannock opposite Fredericksburg, but has not yet occupied the town. His strength estimated at 15,000 to 20,000. General Ewell at last reports was at Swift Run Gap. General Jackson was at Staunton with a view of uniting with General Edward Johnston and attacking Fremont's advance under Milroy, who was not far from Buffalo Gap. General Banks has left Harrisburg and passed down the valley, the main body being beyond Newmarket. It has occurred to me that Banks' object may be to form a junction with General McDowell on the Rappahannock. 2 brigades, one from the North Carolina and one from Norfolk, have been directed to proceed to Gordonsville to reinforce that line, which at one time was threatened by a column from Warrenton, events of which entered Culpeper Courthouse. Most respectfully, your obedient servant, R.E. Lee. General Headquarters, Richmond, May 8th, 1862. General Thomas J. Jackson. From the retrograde moment of Banks down the valley and his apparent intention to leave it, it is presumed he contemplates a move in the direction of Fredericksburg for the purpose of forming a junction with the column of General McDowell in front of that city. Should it be ascertained that this is his intention, I suggested to General Ewell the practicability of striking Banks a blow while en route to Fredericksburg. General Ewell states in his letter that he will not leave Swift Run Gap until the enemy have entirely left the valley, or until he has orders to that effect from you. I am respectfully your obedient servant, R.E. Lee, General. Full General Lee is trying to fix the deteriorating Confederate position. He recognizes the dire state of Jackson, outnumbered and facing multiple threats from all around, but he needs Jackson to continue the fight. To Johnston, he thinks of him as how Lincoln thinks of McClellan. Then there is Sickles. He hears of his brigade at Williamsburg. He reads the losses and sheds a tear. That's where the week ends, and it ends with movement and stasis. In the peninsula, the armies are on the move, but they are both waiting to find a better position. In Corinth, the Union desperately tries to move into camp so it can wait. And in Congress, politicians push and pull, and nothing gets done.